For today's comparison video, we're going to be comparing the GAN16 Maglev Max UV with this cheap cube that I don't even know if it has a brand or any name. I just know it's very cheap and it's a cube. So we're going to start off comparing the price. So the GAN16 Maglev Max UV comes in at £65, making it potentially the most expensive regular 3x3 on the market right now. And this cheap cube comes in at 50p, making it the cheapest cube on the market right now. I'm pretty sure it's the cheapest cube I've ever found on any of my suppliers. So, I guess the score for price, well, 5 stars for this, 5 points for this, and 1 point for this. But we'll have to give some other categories and see if the GAN16 Maglev Max UV can catch up with this cube afterwards. So the GAN16 Maglev Max UV comes in at essentially 56mm. It's interesting that they keep it at that size, whereas other cubes seem to be getting smaller, down to like 55 and 54. The mini cube here is 30mm exactly, right here. So realistically, for most people, a cube of 56mm is just more of a reasonable size for people's hand sizes. And I think that's why cubes were originally about this size. This is just a bit too small and it's a bit tedious unless you're like a very, very young child. I mean, I think even Yiheng Wang would, or even Zhuang Yigeng would struggle with something this small. So I think I'm going to have to give this 2 points for the size, and the GAN16 Maglev Max 4 points. I feel maybe it should be like 55, but 56 is absolutely fine. In fact, no, I'm going to give it 4.5 points for the size. And yes, this can have 2 points. Now, the next two categories focus on something called corner cutting. And corner cutting is the ability of the cube to still make a turn even when it's not fully aligned, like that. So good cubes generally have very good corner cutting. So we're going to start off with forward corner cutting, and I'm going to put some bounds of if it can forward corner cut above 50 degrees, then 5 points, above 40, 4 points, above 30, 3, above 20, 2, above 10, 1. So let's have a look. Yeah, I think that's about 50 degrees, and it can still turn. Right, okay, so there we have it. The GAN16 Maglev Max UV achieves 5 points for forward corner cutting, the maximum available. Now, for this cube, let's give it a try. So let's start off with 10. Yeah, it can do 10, so it's got 1 point so far. Let's see, can it do 20? 20 is about there, I think. Yeah, it can actually just about do 20. That's pretty good, to be fair. Okay, so it's got 2 points. What about 30? No, it can't do 30. It's just locking up. So yeah, I think if you were to use a cube like this, you'd have to be very careful with turning because, yeah, it can't even corner cut that. I mean, okay, it can if you eventually force it, but no. That's going to have to get 2 points for the mini cube. Now for the next category, we're going to focus on what's called reverse corner cutting. This is a cube's ability to still turn down when you misalign the top face, like that. So I'm going to put new bounds, 7 degrees for 1 point, 14 for 2, 21 for 3, 28 for 4, and 35 for 5 points. Let's see. So we're going to put the cube on 35 degrees. Can it quite do it? Yeah. Okay. I think just about the GAN16 Maglev Max UV has 35 degrees reverse corner cutting, approximately. Obviously, you can't give exact corner cutting figures. So 5 points. Let's see, can this do 7? Yep, it can just about do 7. What about 14? No. Okay. So I think 1 point for the mini cube there. Okay, so for the next thing, we're going to focus on the speed. Now, obviously, you don't want a cube to be uncontrollably fast, but you also don't want it to be stiff and slow. So let's just make some turns. Yeah, this cube seems to turn nice and smoothly, nice and fast. Pretty much just what you'd want in a speed cube. I'm just doing these algorithms and they're just flowing very nice. So I think for all intensive purposes, this can get 5 points for speed. Now let's try this one here. So to be fair, it is faster than some old cubes. Like, you can just flick with one finger, and if it's all lined up perfectly, then it does turn. But again, the problem is its lack of corner cutting means that that's not always going to happen. So if I try and do the same algorithms, like, it still turns and I could still kind of do some finger tricks, but it's just far less reliable and requires far more effort to make the turns, and sometimes the finger tricks just won't work. So I'm going to give this 3 points for speed, and I think that is a bit generous, but it is better than some terrible old cubes. So yeah, 3 points for speed. Okay, so for the next category, we're going to talk about the alignment or magnet strength. Well, not necessarily magnet strength. So the GAN16 maglev max UV has corner to edge and corner to core magnets, which is about what we need. You can't actually change the strength of the corner to edge magnets, but you can mess with the corner to core strength if you really want to. You can exchange the rods. So it seems to line up pretty perfectly, which is due to the magnets, and it's nice to see. I'm just doing one flick each time and it just perfectly goes in place, and if I do a big flick it can sometimes do 2, but not always, so I have to be careful with that. Whereas on this cube, yeah, you have to make sure it lines up properly. You can't just flick it and hope it goes in place perfectly. And then if you do, you have to make sure that, because like here, it's only gone 70 degrees, so now I can't make the next turn. So you have to make sure it lines up perfectly. So that alignment really isn't very good. I'm not sure you could really put magnets in here. You might be able to, but yeah, I mean, the pieces aren't even a split piece design and the edges are hollow, so I think it'd be very difficult to get magnets in here. So I'm going to give this 5 points for alignment and this, well, 2 points. Okay, so for the next category we're going to talk about quality control. And there is actually a video of how the GAN16 is made, and it does seem there's some decent quality control going on. Although I have already noticed one person with a missing spare magnet rod, which is a bit concerning, but it's only one and it seems quite rare. Whereas on this, the quality control, well, all the cubes seem to work. However, there is one important issue to notice. It's not guaranteed that you'll get the right color scheme. You can see there's a difference here. This one has white top, green front, and then red on the right, which is the correct color scheme you'll see on most cubes. But this one here has orange on the right, which is wrong. And yeah, it seems pretty much even split which one you get if you order one of these cubes. In fact, you have to order them in packs of 12, so like 6 of them might have the wrong color scheme. So that's just something to be aware of. Obviously, personally, it doesn't really matter to me, and it's not competition. It's still competition legal if you have a slightly different color scheme. It just might be a bit confusing to other cubers trying your cube when they realize, wait a minute, that's not right. And it may slow down some fast cubers. So for quality control, yeah, 5 points, and well, 3, I guess. I mean, at least they all work as cubes. Okay, so for the penultimate category, we're going to talk about pops. A pop is when a piece comes out of a cube, and this usually happens on quite loose cubes or old cubes if you're not turning accurately. and it's quite often your fault, but sometimes you can blame the cube. Now, I don't think I've ever had a pop in a solve on this GAN16, and I don't think I've heard any complaints about popping being at all common. It seems incredibly rare. But to be fair to this cube, I've also never popped this cube, and I don't think I've ever managed to get a piece out, in fact. So, I guess there's no difference. Like, this can also have 5 points for popping, for anti-popping. So, yeah, 5 points to the GAN16 Maglev Max UV, but also 5 points to the tiny, silly cube here. Okay, so for the final category, I'm going to be doing just one solve, and let's say if it's sub 10, then it gets a full 5 points. If it's 10 to 15, 4 points. If it's 15 to 20, 3, 20 to 25, 2. And if it's over 25 seconds, 1 point. Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, my solve should be sub 10 on any decent speed cube quite easily. So I'm going to start off with the GAN16 Maglev Max UV and give it a go. Okay, so that's a time of 8.23 seconds, well under 10 seconds. So, I mean, really, it should even be 6 points, but we'll give it 5 points for the GAN16 Maglev Max UV. Now, here we have the silly tiny cube that we're comparing it to. So let's give this a go and see how long this takes me to solve. .32 seconds. Yeah, I mean, really, that should even get 0 points. I didn't put an option for 0 points, but yeah, I guess I have to give it 1 point because that's the rules. So what can we conclude? Well, despite the GAN16 Maglev Max UV being so much more expensive than this 50p cube, it's clearly better in literally every other category, by far. So, should you get the GAN16 Maglev Max UV, or should you get this 50p cube? Well, if we're just talking about these two options, then obviously the GAN16 Maglev Max UV. However, there are other cubes on the market that are not that expensive that perform pretty well, such as the Qi Warrior M for just £7 that turns pretty close to as smooth. It's got magnets and it's a decent beginner speed cube. Another decent option is the Meilong 3x3 V2M, which again feels quite good, and I would be quite comfortable getting sub 10 second solves on this too. There are also many other cubes in between in price, and you could just get what Yiheng Wang used to break the world record, which is actually about half the price of the GAN16 in the Weilong V11 ball-core UV maglev version. So yep, that's about it for these two cubes. Comparing these two cubes, this is obviously better, but there are other cubes in between in the price scale that are almost as good. So you don't need to spend £65 to get a good speed cube, but spending 50p probably won't get you one.